Welcome to another episode of the Dream Architect Life. We are in for a treat today as I have an old friend and colleague that I think you're going to really enjoy his story. And if you want to kind of have a master storyteller, stay tuned because Don Connelly is exactly that. So, welcome to the show, Don.
Thank you, Brian. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. And really excited about getting to interview you today, if you want to call it that, on the podcast. I think the audience is in for a treat. And fortunately, you and I get to spend a little time every year together. And so I thought, boy, who better to be on the podcast and share some wisdom and your unique viewpoints than you. So maybe the best way to get going, Don, is maybe just tell us a little bit about your story. You have an amazing past, how you got started, and maybe even talk a little bit about what you're doing today, and we'll kind of get into that. But I think one of the amazing things about you is you're at still a very young age, but you're at an age where most people would probably not be continuing to deliver value to people. So I'll be curious to talk about those things. So I will turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about you and
Well, I
where
think the
you're
most
at.
glaring thing, obviously, you can tell by looking at me, I'm outside the norm. I'm going to be 80 years old in 2 months. So if I'm living proof that retirement's not a goal, first of all, for everybody. My story is very simple. I grew up in New England. I grew up in a small town in Maine. I have small town values. I've always embraced them. My parents were small town people, sort of salt of the earth types. I went to college in Pennsylvania, went to Bucknell, graduated. Again, I'm like 80. I graduated in the 1960s. And I got married young and married my sweetheart and had a baby. And off we go in life. And I had to get a job, really. I was sort of bouncing around. And I had to get a job, and I had no skills. I'm a liberal arts graduate with no discernible skills.
Well,
I can
you've
speak,
done well despite that. Then.
I can speak 7 or 8 words of Latin, and that's about it. So I saw an ad, Brian, believe it or not, it said, sell mutual funds, earn commissions. And I said, well, I can maybe do that. So I answered the ad. Unlike today, I got hired just out of college. And there was a firm that sold, they were called in the days contractual plans, which you may or may not remember. But I started selling mutual funds. And that firm didn't last very long. I ended up at E.F. Hutton as a stockbroker. So, and I was, back in, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but back in those, this was even before there was a Series 7 test. It's called the NASD test. And I was sent to New York. Prior to ERISA in the early 70s, only 5 million people owned stock. ERISA opened up the market to the everyday working people getting stock in their retirement plans. But prior to that, it was only 4 or 5 million people. So we were selling stocks to rich people, basically. So the reason I'm telling you this is important is this. I was sent to New York for 6 months, Monday to Friday, live in a hotel. We studied in the morning. It was all about the test because you had to pass the test. Brian, all afternoon we role played, telling stories every day for 6 months. It's the way I was trained. And we're in a room where the lamp is a microphone. There's a camera up in the corner. The prospect is a professional stockbroker. And off we go. So you sold stock with a story. If I got a story for you, and I think we lost that. I think it was LPL came out maybe with the first managed money program. Might have been Sam. As soon as managed money hit, we lost our story. But I grew up telling stories, and I became a storyteller at E.F. Hutton. And I joined a group called Personal Financial Management. I was just financial advisors. And in those days, there were no trails. There was no business building. If he can sell or she can sell, she can manage. So I became a branch manager with Oppenheimer, and I was terrible at it. I gave up my business, which was really, today it'd be a multi-billion-dollar AUM RIA. But back in those days, it was just, everything was transactional. We didn't even domicile stock. We sent everything out. So I became a branch manager. I didn't last very long. And my career in life changed when I became a sales manager for Colonial Funds, which I loved. Colonial now is long gone. It's part of Columbia Threadneedle. But Colonial was a mutual fund company. There was only 1 of 4 companies in Edward Jones. So there I was in the ultimate storytelling firm, teaching advisors how to sit at the kitchen table with mom and dad, have a pot of coffee, and tell a story. And I did that forever. I left Colonial, and when it was sold and became I went to Putnam, where I spent 20 years as a senior vice president of marketing. And back in those days, I managed wholesalers. I was asked to give those up and go on the road and repair some public relations issues. And I became sort of a corporate representative. And the older people remember we hired Dr. Bob shortly after that, Bob Goodman. Bob and I were out on the road. Most people would send a money manager to meetings, to an LPL meeting or Merrill Lynch meeting. We were sending storytellers and economists. And it really caught on. So I began doing, believe it or not, audio tapes. And we were sending out at one point, Brian, over 35,000 tapes a quarter. So I guess got pretty well known among advisors. And I left Putnam in 2004, went off on my own, 2006, I think. And I've been coaching ever since and telling stories. And that's what I do. And the whole thing is soft skills. I think, and I'll just say this and I'll be quiet. 95% of an advisor's success is based on soft skills, not hard skills. Hard skills are what you know. We all know the same thing. We're all smart. We're all well trained. We all share the same pool of resources. The difference is the why. Why are you doing this? So I became sort of the soft skills guy, coach. And it's all about world-class communication and relationship skills. Yeah. And people aren't looking for information.
Agree. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because your viewpoint of, where the world is going is, I think, really good. It's getting more, with AI and whatnot. And so relationships are going to be very important. But one thing that I really want to start the conversation out about is the dream architect life is really a new way of maybe thinking, and it's all about dreaming big and making life full of possibilities instead of letting life happen to you. You want to make it happen. So with that maybe being the context, what does dreaming big mean to Don Connelly?
Well, first of all, and I will say there's such a thing as the imposter syndrome. We all suffer from that, especially when we're young and insecure. I don't belong in that elite group. But dreaming big for me means living the way I want to live. When you turn, and again, I'm 80 years old, when you turn 50, you pretty much know how things are going to turn out. By age 80, you really know how things are going to turn out. So I want to write a book, which I've never done, and I want to just enjoy myself, live life the way I want to live it, and teaching people to become storytellers. And, at this point in my life, Brian, I'm selling wisdom. There's not a lot of common sense left in this world. And I want to sort of pass on so I'm going to spend I'm rounding third, heading for home, and I'm going to spend that time passing on wisdom to people, to financial advisors.
No, and I think that's well said, because you have an amazing amount of wisdom. And I learn so much every time we have an opportunity to get together. And I just think the more people can hear your viewpoint and understand where wisdom comes from, and especially with the world and technology, I think it's just going to be critical. And one of the things though that happens in life is we have rough periods. Before we got on the podcast, we were chatting and you said, well, that's a first world problem, and so that we have those happen all the time. But I think one of the things that happens to people is they run through difficult times, and they let that defer them or detour them and not keep working towards goals or dreams. So maybe give us a little example of times where maybe you've had some difficult lessons, and then what did you learn from it, and then how did that make you better going forward?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, I think that I would advise everybody on this call to get a mentor. I don't care, even at your stage of success, Brian, you probably have a mentor.
I have several.
And I presume you are a mentor. So number one, when you're in a problem, in a slump or whatever, have a mentor, someone who's been there before. Secondly, we all are prone to self-sabotage. Stop that talk. I'm not going to be successful. I don't belong there. I'm stuck. Stop it. Think positive thoughts. In defeat, he only thought of victory. Cervantes. In defeat, he only thought of victory. And just, Diana Schneider said that optimism is an intellectual choice. And I've been in slumps. Ted Williams said, when I'm in slumps, I try to hit singles up the middle. I don't try to hit home runs. And that's what I do. What we all should do is try to hit singles and doubles when you're in a slump. And the other third is, one is have a mentor, two is don't self-sabotage. And the third thing, Brian, which you've heard me say a million times, go back to basics. We all get successful and we stop doing the stuff that made us successful. And prospecting is exhibit A. So set smaller goals. You don't need to hit home runs, hit singles. Have a to-do list you can cross off at night before you get in bed to make yourself feel good. And think positive thoughts, and it'll come. And the last point I'll make, typically when people call me and say, I'm in a slump, I need my sales, my slip. It's not their sales ability, Brian. It's their prospecting ability. The pipeline's empty. In our business, if you got people to talk to, you're going to be successful. The minute you stop communicating, you're dead. So have a lot of prospects in the pipeline, and you'll never have a slump of any protracted length.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think it applies literally no doubt any industry or business that you're in is when you run into a period where things aren't going well, go back to the basics, the things that have always worked, because we do have a tendency when they work so well, you quit doing them, like you said. So I think another thing that's really critical, and I know this is really an important part of who you are, is value alignment. And how would you define value alignment and its importance in life and accomplishing big things?
Well, value alignment to me is you're sticking to your values. And I have very simple values, one of which is I try to follow the golden rule. And I have a few, and Brian, we're lifers. We have to think like lifers. And one thing that'll to all our detriment is short-term decisions. Gus Levy at Goldman Sachs coined a phrase called long-term greed. It's a great line. He said, we do what's good for the firm. It's not good for our clients. It's short-term greed. If we do what's good for our clients, we'll have a long run. And Gus called that long-term greed. And that drives Goldman Sachs, which is one of the greatest firms in the world. So I think, to me, is setting your values, sticking to them. There's all kinds of temptation in this world. Avoid the temptation, stick to the basics. And we all know what's right and wrong. We all know. You may not admit that you do, but we all do. And it's almost like telling a joke. It's edgy. If you think it's going to be a problem, don't tell the joke. If you're going to do something and it's edgy, don't do it. Think like lifers, keep your eyes on your goals. Clients only have one question. Can I trust you? And the minute you do something that's not right, you've violated, you'll never see that client again as long as you live. So value alignment to me is setting values and sticking to them through thick and thin, despite the temptations, despite the slumps, despite I'm running out of money. Oh my God, it's the end of the quarter. I'm having a bad quarter. My mentor said to me really in the beginning, he said, if you really want to be successful, you got to understand one bad hour is going to ruin your day. And one bad day is going to ruin your week. One bad week is going to ruin your month. One bad month is going to ruin your quarter. And one bad quarter is going to ruin your year. So if you want to have a bad year, have a bad hour and get away with it. So his instructions to me were, if you're in the office, be on the phone. Nothing happens without an appointment. If you're not hitting on all 8 cylinders, go for a walk, go to a movie, run an errand, do a favor for a friend, get out of here. But when you're here, work. And so one of my values is work ethic. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'll tell you what, I will never be outworked by anybody. Here I am at 80 years old, still slogging away. I don't want to be outworked by anybody. And actually, we could have 4 advisors on this call. Let's say one went to Harvard, one went to Yale, one went to Princeton, and one works harder than the other 3. Which one's going to make it?
Yeah, we pretty much know the answer to that one, don't we?
Yeah. So don't be outworked. Stick to your values.
Yeah, I think that's great. And you had alluded to having a bad week leads to a bad month, etc. And a lot of times what happens is that creates self-doubt or fear of failure. And I think the ability to overcome fear or to use it as a motivator is such a great benefit.
Hey, Brittany here. In case you hadn't heard, our latest book, Dream Architecture, is available for the taking. Think about it like this. What is your biggest, wildest dream of what retirement could look like? Not the dream that your friends have, or your parents maybe had, or your coworkers. Your best dream, the unreasonable one, the one that you might have trouble admitting even to yourself. So that is what the Dream Architecture book is about. Hop on over to dreamarchitecturebook.com so you can start dreaming big today.
Do you have any examples of either a time when, you were facing some fear and then you didn't let it stop you and it actually turned out to be a growth moment or a learning curve? Or are there things that you have learned over the years that would help you overcome fear? Maybe you could give some tips on, when people face that, because we all face it from time to time. And the sooner you can stop it and move forward and realize it's, something temporary and use it to your advantage, the quicker you can recover.
Yeah, well, my first fear early on was fear of failure. I had a wife and a baby and no money. I was on a draw, and it was very, very difficult. I was surrounded. I was in a bullpen with a big E.F. Hutton branch, and I was surrounded by successful people. And saying, "Oh my God, I don't belong in this group. I'm a fake." But it's individual. But my way of overcoming fear, Brian, is baby steps. I just take baby steps. A friend of mine. I'm going to give this a little plug I don't want it to be a plug, but a friend of mine wrote a really interesting book called "How to Meet Anybody, Anytime, Anywhere." He read an article from USC, behavioral psychologists, that said the biggest fear and public phobia in America is biggest social phobia is public speaking. The second biggest fear is meeting strangers. So everybody said, well, that can't be. This is a very friendly country and you can talk to anybody in America. He called these guys and gals at USC and they said, people are terrified of meeting strangers, even in America. You walk in a room and there are 4 people standing there talking, they won't come up to you. They'll stay in their little group, not because they're not nice people, they don't know what to say. So I ran with that. I've even written a coaching course, how to meet strangers. Believe it or not, it's as simple as how to establish rapport, how to talk to the person behind you in Starbucks. If people are voice activated, and if you can't get an appointment in this business, you're dead. The only way to get an appointment is you got to speak first. So either you get out of the business or you overcome that fear. My mentor made me, Brian, spend a day asking for a discount on things that weren't discountable. So I'd go to the dry cleaner and he'd say, I'd say, "Hey, if I give you cash, will you give me a discount?" The dentist said, "You need a filling. How much for cash?" And I did that. I did that for days till I got to the point where it got stupid. And I said, "No one bit me. I didn't die. No one beat me up." And then I had to spend time saying hello to everybody. And those were little simple drills he put me through. But I'm telling you, Brian, how many times you walk down the street and nobody makes eye contact with you?
Yeah.
It's not because they're hateful people. They're shy. I'm from Maine where people are reticent and shy. So I think one of the big fears we all have is fear of meeting people. And then, of course, rejection is all part of it. We all want to be loved. In fact, my mentor said something very funny to me when he sat me down. I was having a problem with rejection. And he said, "Look, kid, I can't fix what your mother broke." He was really funny. He was very funny. So he said, rejection just means not today. They're not rejecting you, they're rejecting your idea. May I tell you a story? My buddy Mark up in Canada, great guy, wanted to sell topsoil to people when he was in high school because his neighbors are buying topsoil by the truckload and wasting and not using it. So Mark got a pickup truck and a wheelbarrow and some topsoil and a phone, and he was going to go door to door selling topsoil. So his dad, who was a New York life insurance agent, the first day said, been selling life insurance his whole career, said to Mark, can I tell you one thing? And Mark said, sure. And he said, "Mark, if you're going to knock on doors and sell topsoil, you're going to hear the word no a whole lot." He said, "Mark, when someone says no to you, it's because they don't want topsoil. Okay. Don't get hung up on it.
Yeah.
They just don't want topsoil." So my analogy to young advisors is people don't run out of toothpaste on the same day. We all run out of toothpaste. You got to find someone who needs toothpaste that day. And that's the hard part of prospecting. Not everybody needs topsoil toothpaste today. You got to keep looking till you find that person. And if it's true, which it is true, that if you say your close rate's 10%, you got to get those nine no's out of the way. Be thankful for a no because you're one step closer to a yes. Then I'll close by saying this. I was speaking at a conference in Sydney, Australia, And the CEO is an insurance guy, insurance company. The CEO said to these agents in the room, if you walk out to any street corner in Sydney and ask everyone that walks by to buy life insurance, statistically, every 85th person will. The challenge is, do you have the gumption to stand there and hear no 84 times in a row? And it's not for everybody. So
yeah, very interesting. I think you make a good point. And I guess I didn't realize that was the second biggest fear is meeting new people. But one of the things that
social fear.
Yeah.
And not fear of heights, not fear of snakes. I mean, social phobias, public speaking, meeting strangers.
And so I think one of the things that I've learned is, the more people you meet, the more opportunities that get put in front of you. There's some really amazing people out there that I have never met before, but having met them for one reason or another, these interesting collaborations have come, or they've put me in touch with somebody that could help me, get further on something I'm working on. And you having written, many things on how to overcome that. Do you have any tips for anybody that might be a little bit shy about meeting new people that might make them have a little more comfort in reaching out and introducing themselves?
Yeah, I can tell you, rest assured, I have a lot of friends who are very successful advisors who are introverts. You don't have to be the life of the party to be successful in this business. You can be an introvert. Just you got to corral your professional fears. Imagine a surgeon being afraid of blood. I mean, it's not going to work. So just fine, be an introvert, be shy. But if you want to meet somebody, you must understand that person is voice activated. There's a very small chance that person will talk to you. And the number one reason advisors fail is they don't see enough people. Nothing happens without an appointment. The second most reason, by the way, interesting reason advisors fail, they don't follow up properly. And this is my little research. But we have to learn it. And if you're really shy, get on a team and work your way up to becoming client facing. There's a lot of space on teams for good people. Teams draft the best athlete. And I was in an RIA recently where the young man he's been preparing the plans. The RIAs do all the work. This young guy who's just out of school puts the plan together. His next step is to present the plan. They're breaking him in, for lack of a better word. That's a great way to learn. You and I were thrown in the deep end of the pool in the old days. We've all chosen a business where the failure rate, Brian's 85% probably.
Yeah.
Yeah,
very true.
It's a tough business.
Is there anything that you have found, because you keep up on so much information and you're still out there sharing and telling great stories and delivering wisdom. I would imagine you do a fair amount of reading. Is there anything that you're reading right now that you have found that's really been impactful that you'd like to share?
It's on my desk. Can you read that?
The Empire of AI.
Karen Howe, very interesting book. It's about Altman. What's going on in his world and the successes and failures.
Altman, Chat GPT guy?
Yeah, it's called The Empire of AI. It's an interesting book. I get asked a lot of questions, one of which is AI going to replace me? By the way, the most common coaching question I get asked, just for the record, is what is somebody doing more than me doing? I'm doing 500, this guy's doing, or gal's doing 900. What's she doing differently? But a lot of it is a concern about AI. And I will just give you one thought. A robot cannot hold a widow's hand. And that's the bottom line.
Yeah, no, and I think so well said, because relationships and things like, holding a widow's hand are going to be so impactful, because the day-to-day duties and whatnot, probably not too near future, will be done or can be done, utilizing AI. So, these types of skills of being able to communicate with people and care about people and show empathy and meet people are going to be so critical. And that's
they can't reset, Brian, unless they change AI. They don't reset. Remember the reset a few years ago? First quarter reset? I don't see computers resetting. Now, maybe in research it's going to be an issue. Certainly in medical field, diagnosis is probably computers can do it better than doctors. But people read WebMD up to a point. When it hits the fan, they want to talk to a doctor. But I will tell you also, and I don't know if this is digression or not, but everyone listening to this call, and even new advisors who are brand new, you're the most important person this family's ever going to meet, ever, outside of the family doctor. It's, family, religion, health, right? Are the three big things. Then comes money, and you handle the money. So I will tell you, you've got a mission, everyone on this call. Right now, 1 year of college is the cost of a good car. Because of the people on this call, they wouldn't allow their clients to be in a situation of having 3 kids. I've got a friend, by the way, who had 4 kids at BC and Duke for 7 years. Add that up. People can retire and not worry about monies. And I live in Florida, and I can tell you walking around, stress causes cancer. I see it every single day. It causes diabetes, and it's stress. People stress about money. There are people my age bagging groceries in Publix. It shouldn't be there. We change lives. And that's a great way to overcome the fear, to understand you have a mission, and it's a noble mission, and you're improving lives. Your high school friends can't say that. Anybody in this call, you're improving lives. And it's a life-altering career. It's not a job, it's a career.
Yeah.
And get out there, and if you really believe in yourself, you should be tearing the doors apart to get the people to talk to them.
Well, one of the things that is always encouraging to me is, as you had alluded to when we first got on today, that you will soon be 80. And, you're doing what you're doing, one, because you get a lot of joy from it. But from my standpoint, knowing what you do and how you do it, it's such a value to people like myself. So I'd be a little curious as to, with you just going to be turning 80, what would you say your biggest or most important dream or aspiration for your future is? Is there something that you're trying to accomplish yet? Or, at 80, why are you still doing what you're doing?
Because I love it. There's no other reason. I absolutely love what I do. I don't have to retire financially. I'm okay. I don't have to retire. So I can just, I absolutely love what I do. I'm not a good golfer. I have a small boat. I like boats, but I'm not going to, I've done a lot of travel. I've spoken all over the world. So I just want to keep, I'm a frustrated teacher. I think you probably are too. Probably everyone in this call is a frustrated teacher. And I love, Brian, seeing an advisor look at me with that aha moment.
Yeah.
I can evoke that. I mean, Brian, I think you could write a book on how to make $1 million leaving the street and nobody pick it up. Because so many people are predestined to zero. But there are people out there who are real hardcore winners. You're a group for one. And to help those people, and I've helped, I help literally teams with $10 billion. It's not a AUM issue. I've got enough. Everybody wants to improve. And if there's one common area people want to improve, it's storytelling. Making them, what? We have dogs, and we give our dog a treat. We wrap it in a yummy, a dog treat. We give our dog a pill. One of our dogs, we wrap the pill in a treat because it makes the pill digestible. Well, our data is the pill. The treat is the story. And everybody wants to know how to be a better storyteller. So then I'll get back to AI, Brian. Justin Trudeau in Davos in 2018, I think, said, "Never has the world changed so rapidly, and never will it change this slow again." It was quite a quote.
Great quote.
Despite the speed of technology, the thought process is evolved very, very slowly. Our decision-making process is the same as it was with our forebears. Is this person here to sell me something or here to help me? Is it good for my family? Is it safe? Do I fight or do I flee? That's all. Clients aren't looking for information, looking for someone they can trust. And how we trust people, Brian, is eons, ages old. And that has not evolved with the speed of AI. So the stuff you and I do is timeless. The ideas are timeless because the thought process is timeless. It's not a new way to make decisions, as someone announced today.
Yeah.
And I find too, but I'm sure it's the same. You're from Minnesota. I'm from New England. Clients are pretty modest for the most part. I want to educate my kids, pay my taxes, and retire. Those are simple goals. And we can help people meet those goals. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty simple. And their decision-making process is very simple. Do I trust this person? Will I trust you with my money? No other question. I don't care if you're a man or a woman, black or white, short or tall, LOS2, LOS3. I don't care. If I like you and trust you, we're good. In the country, we all do business with people we like and trust.
Yeah,
those are the
very
skills
true.
to work on, likability and trustworthiness.
Yeah.
We've all got the product knowledge. We all can do a plan. We all can read a financial statement. We all can talk about price earnings ratio or downside capture. We all can do that. Anybody can do that. You know, again, if I go to a doctor, Brian, I don't look at getting healed as a bonus. I expect the doctor to heal me. Well, if I go to a financial advisor, I don't look at being financially successful as a bonus. I expect, whether I go to Merrill Lynch or LPL, Morgan Stanley or AXA, I expect to be, or F&G, I expect to be financially successful. So our basic value is taken for granted. I assume you're going to get me successful, whether I go to Sweet Financial or somewhere else. What attracts people is our added value. And that's the likability, the trustworthiness, just the ability to persuade, the charisma. The people like you. So that's really the key to this. That's 95% of our success.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'd love your perspective on is I run into this a lot where people are either thinking about retiring or have retired. And I'm just talking about the general public here. And when it comes to purpose, you know, they know what they're retiring from, but where people end up with problems is they haven't figured out what they're retiring to. And I would love just any thoughts or comments on how would you go about making that transition prior to making the transition so that your next chapter was as positive as the first, or even a better chapter than, you know, while you were working.
Yeah, I've got a friend who does that for doctors. She has a great career, by the way. She helps doctors plan their second life. But, you know, there's two kinds of questions to ask in life: open-end and closed-end questions. Closed-end questions evoke a yes or a no. So I can say to you, Brian, how was your weekend? You go, good. End the conversation. I can say, Brian, tell me what you did this weekend. Now you're talking. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't want to know where it's going to go. I just want to follow you. We need a series. I have 30 of them probably. Good open-ended questions. It's just, I want describe to me, if we were to get together 20 years from now, what would you be doing? Describe life to me, the way you and your spouse see it, or you and your mate see it. And just sit back and relax. And then you can probe down. You're going to live on a golf course or on the water. You're going to have a condominium or a home. You're going to play golf. You're going to play tennis. If I can make that happen, are we good? And just get them talking. As Randy, our friend, mutual friend Randy would say, tell me your personal financial vision. And I help you. So I say, people want to be encouraged. Look, you want to do this at 65? Let's try to get you retired at age 62. See if we can't do that. And you help people. Part of being charismatic is setting high goals for people. You know, we're going to set high goals. We're going to get you retired at age 62 or age 60 or whatever it is. So I think you got to get people to open up and tell. They probably won't tell you the first time around because it's embarrassing to people to open up. We don't know until we trust somebody. But if I hope I'm answering this question correctly. I hope I understood the question. But it's just getting people to describe to you where they want to be.
Yeah, or just, you know, advice from your standpoint of, you know, if obviously, you know, you are way past normal, what's considered normal retirement age. And, you know, you have a purpose beyond that, which is to, you know, continue to deliver value and give storytelling and talk and speeches. But a lot of people, they get to retirement and they're, you know, not working anymore. And they, you know, they didn't really plan for it in advance.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, did when you know, kind of got to retirement age yourself, did you just love doing what you were doing so much that you said, you know, why would I quit? Or
Yeah.
I'm just curious because I run into, that's probably one of the biggest problems is the, you know, what am I retiring to? People just haven't thought through it. And then, you know, they sit around watching Oprah reruns and life becomes kind of boring. And, you know, I think it's all about what you alluded to earlier is doing something you love, but you got to know what that is and plan for it in advance.
Oh, it's part of being a holistic advisor. It's the same as providing long-term care, disability insurance, life insurance. You owe it to your clients to help them. You're right. We don't retire from, we retire to. And that's why we shouldn't be running our own money. We're not money managers, clients. So we've got to get them. We have to have them discuss. You know, I met a young advisor one time, Edward Jones door knocks. And that's a heck of a way to make a living. But I was in Nebraska and I went to Omaha at a regional meeting with Edward Jones. And the regional leader said, I got a young guy who's killing it, knocking on doors. You should meet this guy. So he came in the room and he fit the bill. He passed the eye test to me. He was a good looking kid, well dressed, well kempt. And I said, tell me, how are you so successful knocking on doors? And this will come back to your original question. He said, well, most of my friends start talking and he said, when I knock on doors, I do it during good weather because it's too cold in Nebraska to knock on doors. And it's crazy to knock on doors in the wintertime. And typically it's a mid-afternoon and typically it's a traditional home. Not always, homes vary, but in a lot of cases I'll be talking to mom through a screen door and the kids were at school, dad's at work and mom's traditional. I meet a lot of those people. And I say to people, so he said, most of my friends, one will say, well, you're going to talk to my husband. He makes the decisions. And most people say, well, fine, what's his cell phone? When can I call him? I said, when's he going to be home? He said, I tell you a quick story. Now, that's oxytocin. That's a chemical release. Everyone loves a good story. It releases, it's the same chemical when you hit a good golf shot. When you're having fun, it releases the chemical. Storytelling releases that chemical. You say to a young child, once upon a time, their eyes light up. So he'll say, may I tell you a quick story? And the answer, of course, is yes. And he said, here's my story. I'll just tell you real quickly. In my household, so you got to talk to my husband. I'll tell you a quick story. In my household, my wife does all the cooking. I can't cook. I'm useless in the kitchen. I don't even go there. So she graciously does that. And she's great at it. And it works. The problem is my wife goes away occasionally. She'll take the kids to visit her parents. She will go away with the girlfriends for getting a weekend. I'm home alone. I can't cook. My wife, God bless her, makes meals in advance, leaves them in the fridge with a note attached, what to do when she's not going to be here. As your husband left you a note what to do when he's not going to be here. That's what I want to talk to you about. That's incredibly emotional. That's the emotional connection. And he said, life insurance and financial planning are the final love letter. I want to help you write that love letter. And so that's getting people talking about what they're going to do. What if your husband's not here? What are you going to do? When you retire, what are you going to do? And most people don't have a plan. You're right. And they wither and die. And the woods are full of Lyndon Johnson, Coach Bear Bryant, Joe Paterno. People retire, slam on the brakes and die. And part of the reason is, Brian, when we're working in vital, we're giving. The minute we retire, we're consuming. And our self-image goes right down the tubes. I sit around, I play golf, I drink too much, and I go home and go fall asleep. This is ridiculous. I'm not giving anymore. So the only guy I know, one of the guys I ever heard who's happily retired, he built condominiums in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania. He's an amateur pilot. He's here in Southwest Florida where I am. He will once or twice a week fly fishermen down to the Keys. That's his side business. He's very, very happy doing that. But he planned that before he retired. So you're right, we can't retire. You got to tell him, we can't retire and decide what to do. You've got to decide what you're going to do. And I'm going to urge you to make it involve giving. Whether you teach night school, you counsel children, you teach young kids how to read, whatever it is you do, what would make you feel good? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think that's amazing advice because I can talk personally on that. You know, whenever you have done something for others, I think, you know, myself, I benefit more than the person you did it for. It's so yeah, giving is a great way of spending, you know, any amount of time, whether you're retired or not retired. It's helps build gratitude, and it's always fun to see somebody else becoming better because of your ability to help them. So I love that thought. And I'm just amazed how fast the time is gone here, Don, but we're getting close to the end of the show. And I always have one final question I like to ask everybody. And I'm going to ask you that same question is, what haven't I asked you that I should have? Or what advice would you leave for the listeners that you haven't mentioned already?
Well, it's two different things. The advice I'd leave is this: problems don't age well. Hey, you got a problem, deal with it. The question you should have asked me probably is about my health at age 80. And I say that not to be demeaning. I say that because, and I speak from experience, if you've got your health, you have no problems in life. You've got inconveniences. If you got a health problem, you got issues. So one question, we always ask clients, two questions to ask client. One is when you call a client, every single call you make, whether it's the same day, ask what's changed since the last time we spoke. Probably because you're not calling your clients often enough. And the other question you ask before you get off the phone is, what is it about my service that you like? What do you like about what I'm doing? Or what do you dislike about what I'm doing? You got to get feedback, right? So in my case, how's my health is a very important question to me. Because I'm at the age where I'm pretty soon going to run out of high school reunions.
Health is such an amazing conversation piece, and it's one of the four pillars of the dream architect life: health and longevity. And you can have all the wealth in the world that you want, and if your health isn't there, it's not going to do you any good. My favorite saying is, "He who has his health has 1,000 wishes, and he who doesn't has one." And
that's a great expression.
Essentially what you're relating to. So
that's a great expression.
Yeah. And I think one of the things, for 80 years old, having known you really well, you're very active. You're not only physically, but mentally, and you keep very sharp. And I think that's one of the, I don't want to speak for you, but I think that's one of your keys is that you are active and you have a lot of social input, and you like to be out and do things, and all those little things help, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, my mother did crossword puzzles to the day she died in her mid-90s. I do crossword puzzles. I read every day. I'm an avid reader. I walk 5 miles a day. You have to.
Yeah.
Walking is one of the greatest things in the world.
Yeah, and something that literally everybody can do, and just takes a little allocation of time is all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Don, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And as I mentioned before, you are so full of wisdom, and I learn so much every time I get a chance to be in your presence. And I just personally want to thank you for being the great human that you are, and being always so willing to share, and even to the extent of having spoken a couple of different times at our Elite Wealth Advisors Symposium, and you always bring down the crowd, and that's just who you are and what you represent. So appreciate your being on the show today.
Brian, it's always a pleasure seeing you.
All right. Well, you take care, and then we'll see everybody back here on the next episode of the Dream Architect Life.
Thank you, everybody.